we don't know if Iowa loses that Wisconsin's going to win the division. I made the comment yesterday. I think it's an elimination game for Iowa. They've already got a loss in the Big Ten. Wisconsin does not. You lose this, you're 2 games back, and they have Wisconsin have the tiebreaker. Wisconsin's schedule's a joke, as is Iowa's. So Iowa needs to win this game. If Iowa wins, it's still no guarantee because Wisconsin doesn't have a loss. And if Iowa were to lose, say Wisconsin somehow upsets Ohio State in Madison, they go 10-2 with 1 loss in the Big Ten, and Iowa drops a game somewhere, maybe at Nebraska or I don't know. With all joking aside and trying to be as reasonable as you can, this is the game. I mean, and it has been, like you said, the history of this division. It has been the division so disjointed this year, so imbalanced. That's one thing you've always been very complimentary about this division for, is the balance. And maybe some would say it is balanced. It's balanced in a bad way, but I think the top 2 teams, I think Wisconsin and Iowa are good football teams. Now, Iowa didn't look like a good football team against Penn State. There's no question about it, but I think they're both good football teams. And I think, we had this discussion, you and I, yesterday. What would Iowa do against Maryland if they played them? What would Wisconsin do against Maryland? Kind of those middling teams in the East. I don't think Rutgers is that good. I mean, I think they're maybe okay. Indiana's no good. There's just 3 really good teams in the East. And then in the rest of the Big Ten, there might be 3, maybe 4 good teams. And then everyone else is below average, it seems, at least to me.
Yeah, I named it that at the outset of the show for a number of reasons. You kind of touched upon the history. It has historically been the most important game. These 2 teams appear to be the best teams, just based on what we know of personnel, what we know of what we've seen thus far. And I'm not saying that they're great teams or this is going to be a scintillating matchup for the football fan that wants to see just outstanding play on both sides. But just in regards to the evaluation of what's happened this season and what we know about the teams, these are the 2 best teams. And then the math also is playing in that direction, as you just pointed out, that even though that there have only been 2 conference games played, or for Iowa, 3 conference games played, these are shaping up to be the 2 best teams. And this is just a monstrous step toward winning the division, especially for Wisconsin, because I agree with you that it leans a little bit more in their direction going forward.
Yeah. And I honestly, one thing that I've been saying since last January was, I said, Mark, I think Iowa's the favorite given what they have coming back and given the schedule. But, preseason, I made my selections, my record predictions, and I'm looking up and down at Wisconsin's schedule thinking, move. I mean, they got a pretty cake schedule as well, and they get Iowa and Madison. That's the difference with the 2 teams' schedules, is they get, Iowa has to go on the road to play the Badgers. So that was a big factor. But preseason, I had Iowa winning the West at 10-2. I had them obviously at what would that be? Boy, my mind's not working. 7-2 in the conference, and I had Wisconsin going 6-3 in the conference. Losing to Ohio State, losing to, I don't think I made my actual game-by-game predictions for Wisconsin, but I had them either losing to Purdue or Rutgers early, losing to Ohio State, and then possibly losing against Minnesota the final week of the season. Minnesota's garbage. I mean, they look like garbage right now. We'll see. I mean, I know they beat Nebraska, but I mean, we've never seen a Minnesota team get spanked. I mean, like they got spanked on Saturday. That's concerning if I'm a Gopher fan.
Yeah, we have not. I understand that's the worst loss PJ Fleck's ever taken. I did not follow up on that to see that. I cannot bring to mind another game in which they got obliterated like that. And if you really look at his tenure, he took over in 2017. They got off to a rough start. He fired the defensive coordinator, Rob Smith, midseason, and they kicked it into gear. They won the final 5 plus a bowl game. And ever since then, I think they had won 5-7 season. Other than that, they've been a Western Division power of sorts, and they've had 3 really good. They've not won the division, but they've had, I know that that's one of your knocks against PJ Fleck, and it's a valid one. But they've had 3 consecutive really strong full seasons, 11-2, 9-4, 9-4. But this team, my goodness, Uh, I'll put them slightly above Illinois, I guess, because of the Nebraska win, which was kind of gifted to them in a true Nebraska way. Yeah, so that doesn't look to be the obstacle that it looked to be uh, before we started the season for the Hawkeyes or the Badgers.
I'm curious. You said to me the other day in private that you would like to see Iowa run the table and end up 12-1 and win the Big Ten championship game, right?
So I was stopping a step short of that. I said I want to see
Okay,
them run the table in the regular season,
that's right. Okay,
be 11-1.
right.
Uh,
If they're
yeah,
12-1, but they're
if
12-1,
if my team's not involved, yes, I want to see them run the table and win the Big Ten championship. Yes, and go
yeah.
12-1. If Penn State or Michigan are
Yeah.
involved, yeah, I will be rooting. I don't root a whole lot outside of my own team, but I can say that Hawkeyes fans, I'm honestly saying that I am rooting for, if it's not an Ohio State Iowa Big Ten championship game, I will be rooting for Iowa to win that game.
Well, I can tell you this. Well, go ahead.
One exception would be I do want the Big Ten to be represented in the playoff. So
Well,
that might,
if Iowa goes 11-1 and
oh,
wins
they
the Big
better
Ten
be.
title,
Yeah,
they're
they
in.
better be. Regardless of how ugly it is, they better be. But if they're 10-2, and then I may not root for them to win the championship because I want the Big Ten to be repped.
But what I'm just curious, what happens if they go? Because here's the deal: if they somehow go up to Wisconsin and win this weekend, which I am not predicting, I haven't come out with my official predictions yet, but if they were to do that this weekend, they got a chance. They
Oh,
got a
yeah.
chance at running the table. If you look at the schedule,
And to your point, and you've said this, and not even play that much better.
no, they
Play
don't have to
just
play much
about the
better.
same as they've been playing.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe even a little worse. They could probably even get by with a little worse because let's be honest, Purdue's one of the better teams in the schedule right now, and they've already gotten past. They've already gotten past their two most difficult opponents in Penn State and Wisconsin. Now, granted, they lost to Penn State badly, but Northwestern's a disaster. Minnesota's looks to be a disaster. Nebraska has been a disaster. Rutgers got beat, I thought, convincingly against Wisconsin. I saw some of your guys on the Big Ten show last night. I watched the second half of the show briefly, Mark, and they were acting like they were impressed by Rutgers and that they weren't that far off from making that game closer than it was. I didn't see anything. I didn't watch the game from start to finish. What I saw was the second half, and Wisconsin just looked like they were in control. They controlled the game on the ground, kind of did what Iowa does when they get up. So I'm not anticipating Rutgers coming to Iowa City and winning that game. And Illinois is not any good. There's just so many. Here's the deal: there's so many bad teams right now in this division, and the way the schedule is made up, you have the two contenders that have the easiest schedules. It just makes for a lot of bad games.
Yeah, I hate to see it for the conference, but add in the bottom of the Big Ten East. It's not like there's one bad team in the Big Ten East either. There's arguably three. There are two for sure. Michigan State's not good. Indiana's awful. And Rutgers is, to say that they're good or they're decent is a bit of a stretch.
They might be decent. They might be decent. They had a couple of wins early that kind of made me double take. First couple of weeks of the season, they looked pretty good, albeit against bad Power 5 competition.
Yeah, Northwestern, one of them.
And wasn't Virginia Tech the other one?
Yeah, they beat Virginia Tech. So,
well, I mean, two Power 5 wins. Those games they were not competitive, were they? Northwestern was not.
No.
Okay, so I mean, maybe a decent team. Maryland's the only team from the East besides the top three that we know is good, and frankly, I think Iowa and Wisconsin are the only teams in the West that we know are good.
What's your definition of good? Just curious. Because I would say the same thing. I would use the same term, and I have my own.
So Iowa's good right now? You believe Iowa's good?
Decent to good. Meaning I believe that they are clearly one of the 40 best teams in the country. In that range.
40?
Yeah, 40.
Their defense is elite. We've never said that before, have we?
Is it elite?
Yeah, it's elite. Sure,
I'm not saying it's not. I just don't know that we've seen them play anyone to prove that it's elite.
We haven't seen anybody. We haven't seen them prove any. Listen, we haven't seen them play anybody where they haven't proven it. The Penn State game, they scored 31. I don't think that's indicative of anything,
No.
given how the game transpired, given the lack of offensive
Yeah.
movement, etc. Um, they have been really good. I mean, last week against Purdue, they held them down to 7 points until late when they tacked on a late score. Same at Iowa State, held them to 7 late till they tacked on a late score. Held Utah State to 14. Held who am I missing here? Who else have they played in this conference?
The MAC team, Western Michigan.
Yeah, held them to 10. Held Michigan State to 16. I mean, until they allow points, I'm not. To me, they just maybe they are not quite as good as they were last year. They're not producing the number of sacks and picks and whatnot. I know someone asked Kirk today about the run game, or excuse me, the rush defense. That it's not quite as good numbers wise as it has been. I don't know. I mean, okay, sure, but they're getting the job done as they do.
Oh, absolutely. They're getting the job done, and they're a really good defense. I just, I'm going to make the same statement that I make about a lot of teams at this juncture of the season. Who really have they played? Who can really when making those kind of statements like elite?
Now, I do think. Let me just real quick, not to interrupt you, Mark. I do think Iowa State is decent, and I think people are sleeping on them a little bit. And I said that 2 weeks ago. I think they're going to end up in a bowl. Now, the Big 12 is not very good, I don't think, either. And they're going to beat up on some lower echelon teams, but they were dominant over TCU over the weekend. And I know TCU's got problems, but Iowa State beat them soundly. And I think they're going to beat Cincinnati this weekend on the road. I think they're decent. I think that's a good road win. That might be, if you go back at the end of the season, that might be their best road win if they don't win this weekend. Because there aren't any more opportunities at great road wins. That win at Iowa State, that's an impressive win in a rivalry game.
Yeah, and that Oklahoma State team turned around and beat what is usually a good Kansas State team. That again, the jury's still out, but they're decent. They're
2 Big 12 wins
okay
already for Iowa State, and they still have Cincinnati, Baylor. Don't they have who else do they have? BYU and Provo, which is going to be tough. But no, I think they're going to get to 6 wins. I'm actually excited. I'm actually kind of a closet clone. I'm going to admit to all the haters out there, I'm kind of a closet clone fan right now because Iowa beat them. Don't got to worry about that. And the more they win, it helps Iowa. It helps Iowa's perception, marginally, of course. But by the way, Cole in the chat, who says, where's the comment? He says, Iowa isn't good. Purdue stinks, Corey. So,
when people, again, that's why I asked you your definition of good. When people make comments and use taglines, I just want to know. I'm not arguing.
If we're talking about a team in Iowa, I don't care how down the West is. It's a Power 5 conference. It's a Power 5 division. If we're going to sit here in week 6 and say, okay, Iowa, or week 7 and say, I think Iowa's better than every team on their schedule but Wisconsin, and they're playing a Big Ten schedule, that means they're probably a good team. I think it's hard to make that statement and say, well, they're better than everyone on the schedule, but they're crap. That's just a stupid thing to say. Now, are they great? No, I don't think they're great, especially without Cade McNamara and without Luke Lachey. That doesn't help. Without Jazz Patterson, that doesn't help. And those aren't excuses. I don't think they'd be great with those guys. They weren't great with them weeks 1 through 4. So I'm just saying, I think that's a good team. We can argue about what good means and relative to the conference and relative to the sport. Anyways.
If I had the wherewithal and the resources, I'd rank every team in the country every week. And I was about to make the statement it's the worst division in college football right now. But there aren't many divisions left in college football. The Pac-12 has pretty much obliterated its divisions. The ACC has obliterated its divisions. The Big 12 never had or not recently had divisions. So there's really only 4 divisions left in college football. So I do think that, as you mentioned, I have in the past defended the Big Ten West because I think it's taken way too much criticism and abuse, and the numbers and the results just don't stack up historically. And I'm talking in past years. This year it looks pretty bad, and there will be an opportunity in postseason play to make up for that.
So if Iowa goes to, let's just play, I don't look at bowl projections this early. I really don't care. And frankly, Mark, I really don't care where they go bowling if it's not If they don't get to the Big Ten championship game, I really don't care. Okay, can I
You don't
can I
care
make
at
that
all.
clear?
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. No,
If
I
I
really.
look up some legitimate bowl projections and we play along with those,
I mean, we can do that. I'm just
like
saying in
CBS
general.
usually has,
Like Iowa won the Music City Bowl last year. I don't care. They won the Citrus Bowl the year before. I don't care.
they lost Citrus Bowl the year
See that?
before.
It's because I don't care.
Why don't you care once they get to a bowl game? You
I
you
just feel like if you
you
can't,
watch
first of
the
all,
bowl games. You always tell
of
me that
course,
you enjoy
look,
watching the bowl games,
I
but you
care
don't
on
care
the
if
day of the
Iowa wins
no,
its
no, that's
bowl
not what I'm
game?
saying. I
Okay.
don't care what bowl game they go
Okay.
to in large part. If it's, I know there's this totem pole of bowl games. I don't care whether it's a Citrus Bowl or if it's the whatever the other bowls are. I don't really care about that.
Okay.
It's just more politics to me, anyways. I just it doesn't matter.
There's not more prestige to you in winning a larger, better bowl game.
There is a fit and well, sure. I mean, the higher you go up the ladder, absolutely. And maybe I've become too polarizing with my thinking as it relates to championships and titles. But to me, the state. Let me ask you this, Mark: if Ohio State failed to win the Big Ten, and let's just say they failed to win the East, and they go 8-4, 9-3, how much are you really going to care if they win the Cheez-It Bowl down in Florida?
Well, I've lived those years.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely, I cared.
okay, you care, but are you going to dwell on the projections right now in Week 7?
No, I've never looked at bowl projections. No.
That's kind of what I mean. I'm just saying, and I'm not. I guess I'm inadvertently comparing Iowa to Ohio State. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just saying in general, Iowa's established themselves as a team that can compete for this division title every year. And again, maybe I'm too polarizing with my thinking, but if they don't win the title, it's not a successful year, in my opinion. Now, I think Kirk and the staff would disagree with that because they obviously don't use titles and championships as the bar. So maybe I'm, part of the wrong fan base. I don't know. But to me, it's West Division or not. I don't want to say or bust because the season's not over and I'm still going to care about it and the players should care. And that's what makes this program great is because the guys don't quit regardless of what happens. But they need to win this division title. That's what this game this Saturday is so important.
If you would have been around for our USC show last night, the conversation leaked into 2024. And I find it interesting to think about the Iowas of the world, Wisconsin, and even the Minnesotas and so forth playing just a much different type of team. Now you get that viewpoint from the West Coast, and it's easy from an optics standpoint to just think, oh, Oregon and Washington, these teams are just going to take over. And I had to suppress that conversation and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. First of all, let's not just live in the moment. Washington's not always this good. Oregon's not always this good. These are not just check the box wins for these teams.
That mindset sounds a lot like the mindset of a fan base from Lincoln 12 years ago, whatever that was. So anyways, and Nebraska's been the bottom feeders. Think about that. Nebraska has been the bottom of feeders of the West since when, Mark? 2014?
16, 17. It's Frost's first year. Well, 16. 16 was their last bowl appearance. They went 9-4. And then 17 was Riley's last year. They went 5-7. That's why he got fired. Frost.
And Iowa beat him 40-10 in 2016. That's why.
Yeah, I'm not saying they were good.
Yeah.
2016, they went into Columbus as a top 10 team at 7-0.
Well,
You know what the final score was?
do I want to know?
62-3.
Yeah,
So yes, they were pretenders.
So I don't know. I just I do find it fascinating the stylistic differences between those teams out west that'll be joining here next week or next week, next year. Wouldn't that be nice if they joined next week?